For decades, Camilla Parker Bowles was cast as the villain and the greatest love triangle in royal history. The other woman, the mistress who destroyed a fairy tale marriage, the reason Princess Diana suffered. But what if we could read Camilla's side of the story? What if, hidden away in private journals that the palace desperately tried to destroy, Camilla documented her own thoughts about Diana, about Charles, and about the war for the future king's heart? According to royal biographers with sources close to Camilla, she did keep journals during the 1980s and 90s, detailed, unflinching records of her affair with Prince Charles, her feelings about Diana, and her calculations about how to survive the scandal. These weren't sentimental diaries. They were strategic documents, Camilla's way of processing the impossible position she'd chosen, loving a man who belonged to someone else, wanting a future that would make her the most hated woman in Britain, and believing, despite everything, that she deserved to win. This investigation uncovers what Camilla really wrote about Diana, why those journals became so dangerous that Charles allegedly tried to have them destroyed, and whether the woman who became Queen Consort ever felt guilt for the role she played in Diana's destruction. Camilla Shand met Prince Charles in 1970, long before anyone had heard of Lady Diana Spencer. By all accounts, they fell genuinely in love, two people from the same aristocratic world who understood each other instinctively. But Charles was destined to be king, and Camilla wasn't considered suitable royal material. She had a past, relationships with other men, and a confidence that made her seem too worldly, too sexual, too experienced for the virgin bride the palace demanded. So Charles hesitated, and Camilla moved on, marrying cavalry officer Andrew Parker Bowles in 1973. Charles, heartbroken but dutiful, eventually chose 19-year-old Diana Spencer, young, innocent, aristocratic, and most importantly, acceptable to the establishment. But Charles never stopped loving Camilla, and according to sources close to both women, Camilla never stopped believing that Charles belonged to her, not to the naive girl the palace had chosen for him. Royal biographers who've interviewed Camilla's friends claim she began keeping journals seriously in the early 1980s, right around the time Charles and Diana's marriage began falling apart. These weren't daily diary entries. They were more like periodic reflections, written whenever Camilla felt overwhelmed by the complexity of her situation. She wrote about her conversations with Charles, about watching him struggle in his marriage, about the guilt and exhilaration of their resumed affair, and, most controversially, about Diana herself. What did Camilla call Diana in her private writings? According to leaked accounts from people who claim to have seen portions of these journals, Camilla had several nicknames for Diana, none of them kind. The Girl was the most common, a dismissive reference to Diana's youth and naivete. The Mad One appeared frequently in later years as Diana's emotional struggles became more public. And in moments of particular frustration, Camilla allegedly referred to Diana simply as her, as if speaking Diana's name gave her too much power. But Camilla's earliest journal entries about Diana, according to these sources,
the most controversial alleged journal entry concerns Diana's 1995 Panorama interview, when Diana told the world there were 3 people in this marriage. She confirms what everyone suspected and made Camilla the most hated woman in Britain overnight. Camilla's response, according to those who claim to have seen her journals from that period, was fury mixed with grudging admiration. She allegedly wrote that Diana had declared war brilliantly, that she'd positioned herself as the innocent victim and Camilla as the scheming mistress, and that Diana's strategy might actually work. But Camilla also allegedly wrote something chilling. She may win the public, but she won't win Charles, and in the end, that's all that matters. This entry, if it exists, reveals Camilla's core belief, that public opinion was temporary, but royal succession was permanent. Diana might be beloved, but Camilla would eventually be by Charles's side when he became king. Time, Camilla believed, was on her side. Then came the Tampaxgate scandal, the leaked phone conversation where Charles told Camilla he wanted to be her tampon, live inside her trousers. The transcript was published in tabloids worldwide in 1993, humiliating both of them. According to sources, Camilla's journal entry after that incident was devastating. She allegedly wrote about wanting to die, about the shame of having their most intimate moment exposed, about whether their love was worth the public degradation. But she also wrote, reportedly, that Diana must be celebrating, that Diana's supporters had leaked the tape to destroy Camilla's reputation, and it had worked. Whether Diana actually had anything to do with the Tampaxgate leak is disputed, but Camilla believed it, and that belief allegedly fueled years of resentment documented in her journals. She saw Diana not as a heartbroken wife, but as a calculating opponent using every weapon available, the media, public sympathy, even her own children, to destroy Camilla and preserve her position. As Diana's popularity grew through her humanitarian work, the AIDS activism, the landmine campaigns, the hospital visits, Camilla's journals allegedly became more bitter. Sources claim she wrote about Diana's hypocrisy, about using charity work as image rehabilitation while privately manipulating everyone around her. Camilla couldn't understand why the public couldn't see what she saw, that Diana was damaged, vengeful, and unwilling to let Charles move on. But there's another side to Camilla's alleged journals that rarely gets discussed. Some entries reportedly showed genuine fear. By the mid-90s, Diana was so beloved that Camilla faced real threats. She received death threats regularly. People spat at her in public. Her home was vandalized. According to friends who later spoke to biographers, Camilla became increasingly isolated and frightened. Her journals from this period allegedly document anxiety attacks, fear for her safety, and the emotional toll of being Britain's most hated woman. One particularly poignant alleged entry comes from 1996, after Charles and Diana's divorce was finalized. Camilla supposedly wrote about finally seeing a path forward, about believing she and Charles could eventually marry once the public forgave them, about hoping she'd lived long enough to see vindication. But she also allegedly acknowledged that Diana would always be Charles's first wife, William and Harry's mother, and in death would probably be even more revered. Camilla was fighting a losing battle for public affection, and she knew it. Then came August 31st, 1997. Diana died in Paris, and everything changed. According to multiple sources, including royal biographers Penny Junor and Tom Bower, Camilla's immediate reaction was complex. Publicly, she expressed appropriate sorrow. Privately, according to those close to her, she was terrified about what Diana's death would mean for her future with Charles. Would the public blame her? Would Charles withdraw even further from public life? Would she ever be able to step out of Diana's shadow? The most controversial claim about Camilla's journals concerns her alleged entries in the days immediately.
So why haven't these journals been published? Why, if they exist, haven't we seen them? Several theories exist. The first and most obvious, they're too damaging. If Camilla really did write dismissive or cruel things about Diana, publication would destroy the carefully rehabilitated image she and Charles have built over 2 decades. The palace would never allow it. The second theory? Charles himself had them destroyed. Multiple sources claim that at some point in the early 2000s, Charles discovered the extent of Camilla's journals and panicked. He allegedly told Camilla they needed to be destroyed before anyone could use them against her, or against him. There's a specific incident that royal watchers point to as the likely moment of destruction. In 2005, just before Charles and Camilla's wedding, there were rumors that a former staff member was trying to sell portions of Camilla's journals to tabloids. The palace responded with immediate legal threats and reportedly paid a significant sum to prevent publication. Shortly after, according to sources close to Camilla, she had a bonfire at her home where she burned papers and personal documents. Friends who visited afterwards noted that Camilla seemed lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. She allegedly told one friend, "The past is gone now. I can finally look forward." But did she really burn everything? Some royal watchers believe Camilla, like Diana, would have kept copies of her most important writings, insurance against future attempts to rewrite history or discredit her. These copies, if they exist, might be in a safe deposit box with a trusted lawyer or held by a friend with instructions to release them only under specific circumstances, perhaps after Camilla's death, when she can no longer be hurt by public reaction. There's also the possibility that MI5 or Palace Intelligence has copies. If Camilla's journals contained anything related to the succession, to conversations with Charles about Diana, or to events around Diana's death, security services would have wanted them secured. Not destroyed, just controlled,
classified, kept away from public view for decades. The question of Camilla's guilt and whether her journals show remorse is endlessly debated. Her defenders argue that Camilla was genuinely in love with Charles, that she never wanted to hurt Diana, and that she was trapped in a situation not of her making. The palace chose Diana for Charles, not Charles himself. They point to Camilla's patience, her willingness to stay in the background for decades, her eventual acceptance of public hatred as evidence of genuine love rather than calculated ambition. Her critics see it differently. They argue that Camilla made a choice to continue an affair with a married man, that she prioritized her own happiness over Diana's well-being, and that her journals, if the leaked accounts are accurate, show a woman who saw Diana as an obstacle to be overcome, rather than a person whose suffering mattered. The fact that Camilla allegedly kept strategic journals, documenting conversations and building a counter-narrative, suggests calculation, not innocence. The truth, as always, is probably more complex. People are rarely purely villains or victims. Camilla loved Charles genuinely. That seems undeniable from the decades she spent waiting for him. But she also made choices that hurt Diana deeply, choices that contributed to Diana's isolation and suffering. Her journals, if they accurately reflect her thoughts, probably contain both moments of guilt and moments of resentment, both sympathy for Diana and frustration with her, both love for Charles and calculation about how to secure her future with him. Today,